Hello there, welcome to YouTube subscribers and Human Plus subscribers. This one is called Mantra Magic because that's what mantras actually are. They are the ability to connect with a very powerful magical source indeed. So here we go, let's go into it. A mantra is a sound which we repeat, and we can either chant it, in which case we do it in a monotone, or we can sing it, and that's purely a personal preference. And what you're doing when you're sounding a mantra is you are connecting with one of the greatest sources of power in existence, which is the power of the word. And probably the most well-known mantra of all is the Om. And the sound Om is literally the sound of the universe birthing itself. The source creating the universe, that's what it is. And Om comes from the language Sanskrit. And Sanskrit has got very ancient roots, spiritually speaking. And it relates to Vedic culture, which we now still witness in India. And it goes back at least 25,000 years. So that is a much longer time than most of the cultures and the religions that we're aware of. So I once had an experience of being in a classroom, and I was learning how to be a teacher, and my subject was physics. The children were 12, and I brought a couple of Buddhist monks in with me because their subject was sound. And I just handed over to the monks and let them do their thing, and we all had a great time. And what the monks said is this: they said, you can chant anything you like, you can chant baked beans, baked beans, baked beans if you like. That's still going to have an effect. And the mantra they chose to chant was a Buddhist mantra from the Nichiren Shoshu tradition, and it was Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So all mantras have power, and the reason why I've chosen to focus upon the Vedic mantras, the mantras which are chanted to this day by the devotees of Hare Krishna, is because of the pedigree and the antiquity. When we chant any of the mantras which I'm going to be sharing with you, we are connecting to a tradition that is so ancient, which means that so many people before us, at the same time today, right now, and off deep into the future, all chanting the same mantra. Now, can you imagine how powerful it could be to connect with a mantra which is used by hundreds of billions of human beings? Because that's what we're talking about, the entire history of the world, plus now, plus the future. So this is why I prefer to work with these. And for me personally, I've discovered that the magical promise of these mantras has been utterly fulfilled, and they propel me on to the most extraordinary journeys I've ever been on. So without further ado, let me explain. If you want to work with mantras, it's great to have a couple of tools. And the first tool is a set of beads called the mala, and it's got 108 beads on it. So according to the Vedic tradition, when you repeat a mantra for 108 repetitions, what you are doing is you are linking in with all the energy centers of your body, all of the chakras. You activate them all. So that's the reason to work with the mantra 108 times. Having the beads just makes it easier. It's possible to count, and to start with I did. I used to count my mantras, but very quickly I realized it would be so much nicer simply to have a way of counting. So when we do the count, what we do is you have the thumb already there, about to go on the first bead, and I use my middle finger. So thumb and the middle finger is what does it. So I'd go on to my first bead as I sound my first repetition. The one I'm going to introduce you to, first of all, is the one that I would say is the best to begin with because it's got a really practical application. It's called the Emergency Ganesh Mantra, and this mantra is for the removal of all obstacles. And the woman who initiated me into this very powerful mantra spoke about various experiences in her life when she was utterly stuck in a situation where she really needed to make a sudden change to get out of a car broken down by the side of the road in a dangerous place, is one I seem to remember. And so she would sound this mantra straight away. So it can be used for any emergency at all, any emergency situation. Now, it has the immediate effect of calming the mind, which then allows the mind, the body and the spirit to open up to possibility. That, I would say, is how one uses this mantra to resolve emergencies, because instead of being in a state of anxiety and fear, you're suddenly in a state of peace. And at some point on your journey with me, we will have a look at how we reach peace. But this is a great understanding to work with this mantra. So I'll give you the words. So the first word is the word for the creation of the universe, Om. Everyone's familiar with Om. And to that we add the following. We add Kshipra, begins with a K, Kshipra. And then you have Prasadaya. And the last one is Namaha. So the entire chant is Om, Kshipra, Prasadaya, Namaha. Om, Kshipra, Prasadaya, Namaha. In the description you'll see I've written these out as phonetically as I can into English way of writing, because Sanskrit has its own lettering system which is quite different from what we use for most of our languages in Europe these days. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take you through this mantra, and I'm going to start off very slowly, and gradually the mantra will speed up of its own accord. This is something that will be way outside of my control, and it's simply what I have experienced, and I've also witnessed other people doing this. It tends to find its own speed in its own rhythm. They all do. So this mantra, being for the removal of all obstacles, have got great practical use. And what I suggest is, if you're involved in a project of any kind, one of the best things you can do is you can connect this mantra to yourself for the removal of all obstacles in your own life, but you can connect it to your project. If your project has got a symbol or a word or a series of words, it's a really good idea to work with them. So off we go. Just got a little itch on the nose there to start off with. And I do want to thank the fire for its presence. Working with the element of fire adds a whole other level of magic. So I would suggest to you, it's a really good idea to also work with a flame of any kind, whether it's a fire or whether it's a candle. Very helpful. And the other thing, which is something I've worked out myself, which is that in order to keep tracks, it's great to do this as a daily practice. And my suggestion in the first instance is to work with 40 days. Set yourself the 40-day Ganesh Mantra Challenge. Get yourself a piece of card. Write the numbers of the days and give a little space so you can put a tick when it's done. And if you have one of these, this is going to really help you with your practice, because it helps to keep you on track. It helps you to be aware of where you've reached in your practice. And that does make such a huge difference. To be honest, that was the difference between me being able to be consistent and not be consistent. As soon as I adopted the pattern of writing the days down and giving them a tick, it gives a sense of achievement, a surge of endorphin, to be quite frank, and it encourages. So here we go. So it goes something like this. Om Kshipra Prasadaya Namaha. 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 And And I've been all the way around, and I finish by going back to the first one again, and I do Om Kshipra Prasadaya Namaha. And I complete with the I Am Truth mantra, which is Sod Nom, Sod Nom, Sod Nom. And my very last one of all is the one that connects with my ancestors. This is the one that my ancestors used to sing and chant in their spiritual tradition, and it is Amen, Amen, Amen. So let me into a few secrets at this point. By doing it this way, I've added a whole combination of other experiences to the mantra. You might have noticed that I was timing it with my breathing. My exhalation was to do the mantra repetition of 4 times, and then to have a big inhale, and then exhale the mantra 4 times. So this means I'm also doing breathwork practice as well as doing mantra practice. The third thing I'm doing, I'm choosing not to chant it with a monotone. I'm choosing to play going up and down the scale, so I'm bringing the elements of singing in there. By chanting and singing and doing breath work at the same time, what I'm doing is I'm increasing my lung capacity. And this means that I'm able to make much more powerful sounds than I would otherwise. So this is the reason why I prefer to work this way. So I'm actually making use of doing a spiritual practice and getting as many possible benefits out of it at the same time. And by focusing on my own journey and by connecting with my project and visualizing the image that is relevant to me in my project, I'm putting all the protection, I'm putting all the benefits, all the wonderful magical power for the removal of all obstacles in my own life and in the life of the project, which is my Dharma, my service to the world. So if you take this 40-day challenge, what I suggest to you is what you're doing as the fourth thing now, and that is you're developing and honing and amplifying your unbending intent. And this is the contract that you make when you do this. If you miss one day, you go back to the beginning. I really needed to work with my unbending intent when I began this practice last year, because the first 5 times I missed and I had to go back to the beginning. And I found this was a huge benefit, because having missed so many times, can you imagine what my unbending intent was like on the final time? Well, I'm over day 200 now, and that's a whole other story. All I'm inviting you to do is to take the 40-day challenge and see how that goes, and realize the benefits in your life, in your activity, in your relationship with other people. And the 6th benefit is the sense of peace that this confers. This is a great way to pacify the mind, to release all the turbulence, all the emotions, all the forces we get exposed to when we're communicating with other people throughout our day, and bringing ourselves back to a state of peace. So all the love to you, and please do let me know how you get on by leaving a comment. Thank you very much indeed.